This is where you start if you're thinking of investigating political corruption. And it's important that you get the beginning right because how you start is going to pretty much set the table for how you are going to be able to finish. In other words, if you start really, really well, the sky's the limit on how you can finish. If you start poorly, then you've got no chance. You're not going to finish well no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work. So, getting the beginning right starts with trying to eliminate bias. I know that sounds like cliche, and I know people say it all the time, but it's a serious thing when you're going into research because bias makes it impossible to do research. Bottom line. I don't care who you are. If you have bias, then your research will end up being flawed. I don't care who you are. It will end up being flawed. You will end up missing things that, if you would have picked them up, would have made your work a million times better. It's the difference between having good work and having excellent work. It's the difference between having work that people can talk about as opposed to producing work product that ends in getting a corrupt politician out of office. Okay, that's the difference. So let me just offer a few pointers or some words of advice. Everyone's different, so there's no perfect way to do this, but let me offer this for advice with bias. The way that I try to eliminate as much bias as possible is I take whatever subject it is that I'm researching, and I come up with my best hypothesis to what I think is going on. And I go 100% with all the bias I have in me into this hypothesis, okay? And I mean, I will sit there and I will go for days, okay, going deep into all of my deepest thoughts about this subject and really go into, full bias mode, like full bias mode. And I will come up with a hypothesis or two. When I come up with a hypothesis or two, what I then do is I then go about trying to disprove both, one or two or three. It's basically the scientific method, but applied to the research world. So to give a good example of what I'm saying, let's say I wanted to go and do some work on potential corruption in a future national race, let's say a future presidential race. And what I want to do is I want to dig into or I want to look at or examine 3 or 4 individuals who I think will be the top in their prospective primaries for whatever party that they're running in. And what I'll do then is I'll say, okay, so I'm trying to pick at least 2 out of the 4 in each party that I'm picking here. So I want 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, which 4 should I pick? And I'm going to go in and make my reasons for who I think would be the best. And I'm going to go in when I do this process, I'm going to go full bias mode. I'm going to go into the candidate I think I'm going to go for the one I'm going to vote for. I'm going to say that one right there is definitely going to be one of the top 4. So the next step I do is I go in and then I try to disprove that individual is going to be in the top 4, right? So, and I use every piece of research I can to knock it down. And then when I look at my picks, and I look at that pick, and I look at for all the reasons why I was wrong, that's a little taste of reality for myself. And that's when I say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be picking this person. I'm probably going to vote for that person, but that doesn't mean that everyone else likes that person. And so I would be wasting my time if I spend the next year and a half doing work on a potential candidate who never makes it into the top 4 or 5 in the primaries of their party, right? Like I just wasted a whole year and a half. I can't, that's too much time to be wasting. So that's why picking the right people to do research on before the election season comes around is imperative. And the best way to do that is to eliminate any bias you have. And I just gave you the example of how I would eliminate bias in that example. I will just go in and say, oh, that person there, the one I would vote for, the one I love the most, that's who's going to be in the top 4. And that's the way you do it. You can do it on any subject, whatever it is. When you go into it, go in and create a hypothesis for the situation, whatever is going on, and dive in hard with your bias totally. And then once you do that and you've created a hypothesis based on your biases, then try to disprove that and go hard on disproving it. And you will see that if you do that, that will really help you eliminate any bias you have, and it will help you sort of see things in the way that they are in reality rather than the way you hope they are. So that's the first thing. Now the second thing, and this is what we're talking about now, is where you start if you're thinking of investigating political corruption. So the first place that you start is you start with your bias and you deal with that. My method is you create a hypothesis on whatever situation you're thinking of investigating. You create a hypothesis, and then based on all of your bias, whole hog, all of your bias, and then you go about disproving it. And that is how I start off. So that way I can be balanced and I can be without bias. So that's the first thing. The second thing you have to do is, before you even get into it, you have to practice. Now, I like track and field, and I coach it sometimes. And, what people think you see someone out there on a track and they're running so fast and you think it's natural ability. And a lot of it is, but a lot of it is training the body to run that way, because the human body isn't naturally built to do that. And so you have to train the body properly, and that takes a lot of practice. So when you're doing this kind of work, you have to practice before you actually get into a project. Everyone's different. Like I said, the first part of this, I said everyone's different. Everyone has a different method. My method of practicing, because I like to really push the envelope, and you guys can try it for yourselves if you like, but you can pick something else that's similar. I like to pull up the FBI's most wanted list, and I like to try to search for people on that list to try to find a digital footprint for any of them. Now, that's really hard, but that's the point. Trying to find a needle in a stack of needles. And when you do that, it's so hard to do because these people are gone, right? They've disappeared. No one can find them. It's really difficult. And then to try to find them with just an electronic signature, an electronic footprint, makes it even harder. So I like to do that. And you never know. One day I might stumble upon finding someone there, and I can turn in the information and win, not win, but earn the award money. I don't know. So that's one of the reasons why I like to practice on it too, is there might be a little bit of a jackpot at the end if I just happen to stumble across the right set of facts. But with that said, you have to practice. You have to find something that you really enjoy or something that you can do consistently that is difficult, and do it and search and research and dig online. And do that in your spare time whenever you can, and especially before you start a project, because that's what's going to get your mind in the right place to do this kind of work. It's not easy, So you have to train yourself to get in that mindset. That's how I do it. There can be a million other ways. You can use, one other way that I do it is I use Twitter, and I use it as like a surveillance type of thing, where if you want to see what is going on in a certain neighborhood anywhere in the world, you can use Twitter to do it. You just have to know the right search parameters, find the right users, and just using their, communicating with them and using their phones on the ground, you can actually surveil a place. So, and so, sometimes I'll do that, just to mess around. Nothing serious, but just to mess around, because it's a challenge. It's really hard. So just find a way to practice, be diligent about it, and make sure you do it before you get into any project, because that is how you are going to be in the right mindset to be able to uncover what you need to uncover for a project. Okay, so with that said, once you start off the right way, you have to get into the right research topic, right? The right target that you want to get information on. We will get into that in the next one. So for the next one, come back. The next one, we're going to talk about how to choose the right topic when doing a political corruption investigation. Okay, see you later.